right, welcome back to another episode of Cali Bros and Cryptos. So Shane and Ian, we're going to go ahead and come at you again today with another video. This one is going to be a little bit different. We're actually going to have kind of an impromptu conversation about what currently is going on in the world. So right now we're in the middle of the crisis going on in Ukraine, with Russia and with kind of the entire world watching. And just, we're not going to get too political here, but there's been a lot of cases for and against cryptocurrency as of late in the mainstream media. And I just kind of want to just talk about why exactly cryptocurrency is kind of on trial here, and why and what exactly we can go ahead and do, or how we can go ahead and think about crypto as being rather than a damning asset to
empowering.
The world. It can be an empowering asset to the world. So just want to have a little bit of combo about that. So the first thing I want to bring up is the fact that so many governments, or not so many, but three. We've seen three governments in the last 2 months, really, 2 to 2.5 months, meddle with their citizens' bank accounts and freeze their bank accounts for one reason or another. The first time we saw it happen was in Canada with all of the trucker protests that were going on out there. And basically they said that if you had any sort of affiliation with the protesters, then your bank accounts and all of your assets would be frozen. You would not be able to go ahead and take money out of your bank account if that were to be the case. And now we're seeing the exact same thing both in Russia. And Russia, actually, there's even a little bit more to that story, being that a lot of companies are also shutting down, and a lot of different payment systems are shutting down in Russia as well. Along with Ukraine too. In Ukraine, they are only limiting people to take out so much money per day, so that all of those banks can give their reserve funds and their liquidity to the government, so that they can pay for defense weapons to go ahead and prevent the invasion from their country. So, like I said, I'm not really taking a stance on any side. I'm not saying I'm with or against anything, but I just want to kind of get into how cryptocurrency plays a huge factor today in those three different scenarios. So, Ian, I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to you. So what do you think is going to go ahead and kind of happen here? And how can cryptocurrency help?
So there's a lot of speculation when you think about what is going on with cryptocurrency. Like I have my thoughts, because I try to, as best I can, put myself in the minds of the people who are running the country, but that's like impossible to do. But I'm like, okay, if I were them, and this is, first of all, I need to think about what do I want to achieve. What you gotta believe is peace and order, one way or the other. The means start to, you start to think about what do those look like. So I look at the concept of decentralization. If you look at something like cryptocurrency, you have basically, I feel like they have run out of times that they have said, we're going to regulate this. Because people hear that, they always say, we're going to regulate it. And then usually the market starts to go down a little bit out there, depending on the regulations. Of the industry that they are regulating. In this case, they can't. They can regulate it, but they can't have their hands on it and manipulate it the way that they want, the way that you can something like the US dollar. So it starts to get a little scary in their minds. If I'm this centralized organization, like the U.S. government, and I want to, or the Canadian government, and I want to be able to do things like freeze accounts or track spending exactly to back all the way to a source, or sanction a country if they're not doing what I want them to. Which, once again, I'm not taking a stance on the Russia side, but I'm looking at the ability to do this to other countries to basically squeeze them dry. Now, you look at what's happening now with Ukraine, that we're able to donate to a certain crypto wallet to help the cause. So something like that. Now, they may not have access to, I don't know, their normal banks. Maybe they got caught up. Maybe Russia is putting pressure on them where you can't. They're shutting down power. They're shutting down their banking system over there, so you can't get money out. So say you have $200,000 in the bank, but you can't access it because the bank just got blown to hell. I don't know. How do you go about getting that money in a decentralized concept like Bitcoin or other decentralized networks, financial networks? You can still get that money very easily because just because you take out one bank doesn't mean everything's destroyed. So just a little bit of a thought. I don't know if you want to cross elaborate.
I'm also thinking from a timing perspective, and something like when there's an invasion going on, um, timing is really important. You need to be able to buy things quickly. You need to be able to go ahead and get things done quick. And wire transfers typically take anywhere between 5 to 7 business days to complete. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're a citizen trying to send money to your family because they need to go ahead and buy a new car, to go ahead and flee the country, and obviously I'm sure those types of things have skyrocketed in price, at this point in time, then timing's everything. If you say, "Oh, I'll send you the $100,000 that you need to be able to buy a car," it'll be coming in 7 days. Well, that's not going to do very much good, right? So if you can go ahead and send a Bitcoin transaction, it literally takes about 10 minutes to go ahead and get that piece of currency, that amount of wealth in their hands. And if they can find someone who would go ahead and be willing to take that Bitcoin as payment, then literally those things can happen almost instantaneously.
It doesn't know boundaries. I mean, it doesn't know borders. I think that's what's great about something like Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no like converting to the local currency. There's nothing. There's nothing like that. It's basically like if I have a bar of gold, I could go ahead and send that bar of gold across the world to someone who needs to be able to go ahead and use it right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, it has a set value across the entire world of this is what it's worth, right? Bitcoin is the exact same way. It has a certain value as of right now that it's worth $39,000 or $40,000, and that's that.
Yeah.
So, it is a digital gold in that.
Well, and
sense.
it's funny. So I started reading the Bitcoin Standard not too long ago, just the other day, and it is very, very fascinating the different types of currency that have been used over time by different governments. And what has always made the currency obsolete is, well first of all, what made the currency valuable was its scarcity. So there's an example in Africa. There were different types of beads, and there was a man who came to Africa. I believe it was Captain O'Rourke, or something like that. I don't quote me on that, but something like that. And he came to this country, and he realized he could get this a lot easier. These types of beads. So he came in, and basically he came in and was able to get all of these different types of beads very, very easy. And the chief of the country tribe, the area, basically outlawed his beads because they weren't mined correctly, right? And it was like, how do you discern? Now, obviously, that was a different time, but how do you discern? Well, these aren't legal because they weren't gotten properly, but these are because they were mined properly. Because the way that you typically mined it was very difficult, it was very excruciating. Where he was able to get it very quickly and cheap, so it took away from that value. So I think that's what starts. What happens it starts to be what happens when something becomes invaluable. Is all of a sudden a new technology presents itself that says what you were doing was actually really obsolete, and we can do it a lot better. Copper, and I believe it was copper and zinc were also the metals before silver and gold came to light, that were very similar to that. So it was very, very fascinating to kind of see how, well, copper is really easy to get, so all of a sudden it's not as valuable. But initially it was as valuable. So I think that's what's happening a little bit, since we've moved away from the gold standard. Now we kind of have this lapse in time, which we're not able to stand in. And the governments of the world know this, is that we can't be away from the gold standard or have something that's keeping our currency scarce and valuable without. But yeah, we just can't be in that position for a long period of time. All that to say.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. But I guess another thing to kind of bring to light when talking about like different countries. Well, like you said, different countries have had different types of currencies for forever, and that's why every single country has a different type of currency that has a different value, right? Right now, the United States dollar is kind of what every single currency is compared to. So if we want to say, oh, well, what is a pound worth, or a euro worth? Well, okay, that would be X amount of US dollars. Or how much is the Canadian dollar worth? It's worth this many US dollars. So right now, the U.S. reserve currency, or is the current reserve currency of the world. However, don't think it'll be that way for forever. Just because it's our currency is just as variable as other currencies. So because we keep on printing more, because we don't have any, just like the beads, we don't have any way to be able to discern, okay, well, we can just go ahead and print more, and it's no big deal, and we can just give out more money. Well, okay, cool. We're seeing the prices of things go up astronomically because of that printing.
And to that point, and this is something where we have a younger sister who's getting into the world and starting to understand. She's taking an economics class right now. She's starting to understand this, but you have someone who's making $13 an hour, right? And all of a sudden they go up to $15 an hour. But the price of all of the goods that they buy on a normal basis has gone up 10% or 15%, let's say. And now all of a sudden that $2 raise it seems great at the time, but it's a very, very short-term fix for what is actually happening. And one of the good things to ask, I saw this recently. If you ever have this conversation with someone, you talk about minimum wage, you could say, well, what's a good price for minimum wage? $15? Sure, yeah, that sounds great. About $30, $50, $60. It's like all of a sudden, and then they finally realize, oh shoot, that it doesn't matter. We could go as high as you can, but it's still going to be minimum wage. That's the point, is that it's still going to be the minimum standard set. And that you're going to have some companies who adhere to the minimum standard and some companies who are like, we'll pay a little bit more than the minimum standard. But the higher you go, the more you're hurting all the companies and just the economic system as a whole. But that's what's happening as we print and print more, is that you're going to need that minimum wage to go up and up and up in order to allow for certain people to make a certain standard of living. And then all of a sudden we're stuck in a point where $100 is going to get you a gallon of milk.
Well, I mean, and that being said, we'll get, and we've already kind of started this death spiral, but that's what it's going to be. It's going to end up being a death spiral of it gets out of control. Because controlled inflation. I mean, back in the '70s, I believe the minimum wage was something around like $2.30,
Something like that. Yeah,
and
when
then
it
it
first
got up.
introduced.
Yeah, and it got up to about like $5.70 or something like that, and then it was about. I remember my first job at minimum wage. I was making $7.10
Me
an
too. Yeah,
hour,
somewhere around
and
there.
then when I got to college, my minimum wage was, or the minimum wage was $9 an hour, in Pennsylvania at the time. So, and I believe it hasn't changed since. At least not 100% sure
I think it
if
is up to
that's
around
accurate.
8 something in Ohio. I know, like in Maryland right now, it's around 11, give or take. But it's on its way by 2025. It'll hit 15. Um, so,
But
but
I
the
guess for me, the issue is going to be when, if, like you said, if we keep increasing, and the fact that the government feels like they need to increase it to be able to keep up with the rising prices of food, that's going to end up being okay. Well, next month the minimum wage is going to need to go up a dollar because everything else went up a dollar, and then
well,
next
and
month it's going to have
they
to go up $2 more,
and
and then it'll have to go up $10, and there's no standard of what actually our money is worth.
well, yeah, exactly, and we don't know. Okay, so we don't know. We're not experts, I should say, on economic policy or fiscal policy by any means. I mean, having my master's and studying financial, you know, documents all day long, I have an idea, but we're not experts per se. But what we do know is just simple math, and we do know that you can't raise the minimum wage rate that fast because you're going to put a lot of businesses out if that is the case, especially small businesses, and you're going to put a lot of power in the hands of the big corporations, which we all don't want that necessarily. Um, so we see that happening. So they know that they can't raise the minimum wage rate that quick, or just pay payments or wages paid out in general that quickly. So if we have that as the case, but now all of a sudden, 7.9 were the numbers percent that just came out the other day. So we're looking at
Yeah.
8% year over year. Now, I don't see that going back down by any means. I know a lot of that, most of it was caused by the pandemic, but now we're continually spending money. We're not cutting the budget in any way.
Well, we're
So
supposed to be, but again, with the whole crisis going on right now, it doesn't look. I mean, we'll see what Jerome Powell does, but um,
well, we can expect rates to go up for sure. For them to raise the rates again, but I think that they can't raise it fast enough to beat what's incoming in terms of just inflation as a whole. I know he Powell, the man, will get up there and talk about a 2% inflation rate, but that's a pipe dream at this point. He knows he's smart enough to know that's not possible whatsoever, um, unless he
at
raises.
least in the shortcomings, unless I mean, we would need a catastrophic event to go ahead and bring our economy back down to the point where
Yeah, I mean when I
everything
say
would
that,
deflate.
I mean this year. I mean like this year.
Yeah.
He's talking about getting back down. It's like that's not possible whatsoever. I don't think to get back down, and I could be very wrong. Um, I mean, I hope I am for the sake of the economy, but at the same time, I think if we do come back down that quickly, it won't be good for the economy either. So, because then we run into deflation. But going back to Bitcoin, all that is that we have, especially in America nowadays, we have two political parties that view currency in a very different way, and they're kind of pulling and tugging at this, and the people who are suffering are the American people, because they can't agree on what to do with money, just in general.
Well, I think, and I think that every person out there, whether you're left or whether you lean left or whether you lean right, I think that almost every person out there can agree that the majority of our government officials are crooks. They're all they're all in it for themselves. They're all in it to make money. And whenever a government
And look
official
good. Yep.
says, I'm here to help you out," I'm just trying to protect you. Everyone should be questioning that at least a little bit. Um, Especially, I mean, and I didn't mean to bring in any sort of uh, like 2 years ago stuff into this when I said that. I'm talking about from even strictly from a financial standpoint.
Yeah.
Um, like you should be able to be in charge of your money. If you make money, you earned that money. If you um, if you decided to go ahead and put that or take $5,000 out of the bank account, that should be your decision. You shouldn't need your um, your or a red flag posted on your bank account when you go into the teller and say, "I would like to take out $10,000," and them say, "I have to check with my manager." It's your $10,000 that you own, and you should be able to
You
go ahead and
know,
do whatever you want with that money.
so that's fascinating. I was having a conversation the other day about if government worked the same way, like an open enrollment kind of health benefits thing worked, where you could choose the services you wanted and that you paid taxes on those services, but you didn't have to pay taxes on the services that you opted out of. So like if you wanted police or fire, you paid for that service and you chose that you paid for that service. But if you didn't want it, then you could opt out of it and just say, no, I don't want that. But obviously there's being a way to, if someone hurts you or attacks you, you don't have the cops to help you with that. Or if your house burns down, firefighters aren't coming. And that probably would factor into fire insurance and stuff like that. That would be a really, really neat concept. Because I
That
know,
is really interesting. Yeah.
yeah, but you got to look at the way that government spends money is the amount of government funded like contractors that are out there that make so much money on these government contracts. They're not helping us in any way. They'll rationalize that they are, but they're not helping the people of America. They'll say that, well, we need to stay ahead of the game on health and healthcare and on other things, but
Well,
that.
it's interesting. Like going off of that same idea, though, one of the huge movements last literally almost a year ago to the date um, was the whole idea of Robinhood and GameStop, um, where you had a bunch of regular people who had some money on the side who said, "Hey, um, there's a bunch of GameStop stock shorts that are out there right now. Let's take these companies who are just basically eating the lunch of GameStop, and let's kind of stick it to them." And that's what they did. But the hedge funds that were shorting GameStop got bailed out by the government. The government used your tax dollars to pay those companies
Yeah.
back the money they lost, and then they put it back into GameStop to go ahead and short the market again. So I guess for me, it's like, what, like, where a lot of our tax dollars actually go is right back into the hands of these rich people who literally just do whatever they want with the system. But when we want our cut, when we decide that we're smart enough to go ahead and say, "Hey, you guys are not doing this the right way, they just put their foot down and say, "Oh, well, actually you're technically not smart enough to understand what's going on here. So we're just this is actually what's going on. We're actually helping you. We're protecting you by making it so that you can no longer buy this stock because of how variable it is. And we're protecting you from
Yeah.
all of this stuff. Let's let the experts. We're the experts. We understand how to do this, so we're going to go ahead and do it. And don't you can just kind of keep your nose out of it, please."
And that it makes me think about like a
It's
parent.
unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like a parent, being that way with their kid. Like I get that because parents know what's best for their kid. I mean, in my opinion, their whole life, but really up until they're 18, they get to decide what's best for them, and they should, in my opinion. But the government gets to decide what the government was created. The United States government was created because it was supposed to be a tiny sliver supporting the people of America. But what instead has happened is that they use us to support them and lie to us, telling us that we're going to get shut off here. We're going to get cut off of YouTube. But
Okay.
no, I'm kidding. It was a joke. But they're lying to us and telling us that no, this is actually what's best for you, but we're just kind of using you to prop us up. And I guarantee they believe those delusions. Like I really do. I think that if you were to talk to a lot of the people who work in the government, they actually believe that they're helping us, which is laughable to me. But they do really believe that. And I think that something like cryptocurrency, they will find justifications, and which you've seen, they'll find justifications for it that help them believe, or just rationale, I guess, that it's wrong, that it's bad. And you see things like examples made out of the Silk Road, the issue that happened back in 2011, 2012. So you see them saying, well, people are using this illegally and trading things like that. I always laugh at that concept because you look at like, okay, how many cash transactions are there? Really? Um, so it's like you're always going to have crime associated with any endeavor. It's going to be part of it, but it's not
Well,
what runs the endeavor.
and and just kind of going off of that same idea of the fact that your government, it should there are always going to be people in a country who also disagree with the government.
Yeah.
Um, and that's part of the reason why, and and also just kind of going off of your idea that they believe, I truly believe that a lot of these government officials believe that they are helping as well. They think that they are going ahead and helping. But if I say right now, or if I'm explaining to you all of the different things in Russia that are going on right now, the fact that Starbucks, McDonald's, all of these different places have shut down their business in Russia, that MasterCard and Visa are no longer accepted in Russia, that the SWIFT payments from around the world can no longer be wire transferring money into Russia. Um, all of these different things are contributing to the collapse of the economy, and a lot of people are like cheering, like, yeah, let's collapse Russia's economy and let's go ahead and but what you have to understand, I guarantee that if, and I'm going to use the dichotomy here, I guarantee you, if I told you that Donald Trump was going to go ahead and declare war against Mexico, and all of a sudden the rest of the world were to cancel us and decide that Visa and MasterCard were no longer accepted in the United States, that you couldn't go to McDonald's or Starbucks um, or Taco Bell um, or A&W or Kentucky Fried Chicken or any of the restaurants in the United States. If you couldn't buy groceries with your debit card any longer in the United States, you would be singing a whole different tune right now. Because, and same thing, if Joe Biden were to go ahead and declare war against Mexico, and the same thing were to go ahead and happen here, um, there would be half of the United States who probably would be absolutely up in arms and disagree with whichever two of those presidents you didn't like, um, and say, that's BS. I don't agree with that. I don't want that to be happening. But all of these sanctions would still be happening to you. Your life would be affected. That is what's happening in Russia right now.
And guess who's not affected? Guess who wouldn't be affected? Is Putin, Trump, Biden. They would not be affected by the situation because guess what? They're still taking our money away, even in the midst. If they really cared, guess what? They would cut off tax payments, and we wouldn't have to pay taxes for the time that sanctions are under. But they're still taking taxes away from us during that time. And I mean, that's the way the system is set up. But yeah, exactly. They're not affected at all in that situation.
So this is where, when I say that I have a
other than
wallet,
other than feeling the pressure from one side.
Obviously, yeah, it does create pressure, and that's what the people are cheering for, I think. But I think they don't realize what detriments there are to having like all of these sanctions really put in place, and how much it really is decimating not the top. It's not the top. It's decimating the lower citizens, the lower class, the middle class citizens of Russia are the ones who are really being absolutely destroyed right now, and it's really, really, really sad that has to happen. But that's why I say, with Bitcoin, with cryptocurrency, it's something that can't be sanctioned. It doesn't have a bias. Bitcoin is neutral. It doesn't matter what the rest of the world thinks of Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't have an opinion about the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
Bitcoin can be used. Yes, it can be used in illicit behavior, but it also can be tracked through illicit behavior too. It is really hard to get away with illegal activity through Bitcoin if your government is deciding to go ahead and look into the transactions that you're making, because it's an open ledger. The government has access to it just like the people have access to it. Now, they can't stop those transactions from happening, but they could still arrest you for making those transactions if they can end up tracking those coins that are being spent back to you, which is a possibility. But it's not as anonymous anymore, at least, as it was in the beginning, I guess, is kind of what I would say there. However, when we transfer Bitcoin from one person to another, that is what cannot be stopped by the government. And actually, Canada figured that out really quick when the Prime Minister actually asked specific exchange to go ahead and reverse or cancel the transactions that had taken place from an exchange to one of the organizations. And literally the person from the exchange said, clearly you do not understand anything about Bitcoin. It cannot be undone. Have a good day. Like,
that's great.
So it's just one of those things that it does put power back into the people, and I really hope that people realize that and can go ahead and move on. So
yeah, a Bitcoin, a currency for the people, by the people, for the people. But we are all Satoshi. So all right, well, I think this has been a good discussion. And I'm sure, like, this is the root of it. I'm glad we talked about this, because this is really the essence of why we believe in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin so much. While there's a lot of crap out there, we think that the overall trend of something like Bitcoin will be the future for sure, and that's why we're here, because, like Shane said, it puts power back, takes power away from the governments and the oligarchs and who try to control everything. So, all right, you wanna any more comments?
Well, make sure you go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave a comment. whether you agree with us or disagree with us, or if you found a flaw to our logic, we're more than willing to go ahead and reassess what our thoughts and opinions are. So so feel free to go ahead and leave a comment in the section below, and have a wonderful rest of your day, guys.
All right, we'll see you soon. Crypto Bros out.
Out.